Steve Lacy. I won't bother doing an introduction on who Steve Lacy is because if you're here, then you probably already know him and his style. So let's skip all the formalities and just get straight to composing. When creating this, I didn't actually have Steve Lacy in mind, although when I finished, I noticed that it would suit his style. So now I'm here breaking down one of the samples that will be in my upcoming music library of this month. Before starting the sample, I grabbed my notebook and wrote down all the instruments I'll be using in the sample. Usually when creating samples, I start off with a piano, but for this one I decided to start off with a bass since I already had something in mind. I used the Ilya FMR of modern bass. If you can't afford it, you can always get the Drumstar Volume 4 drum kit, which has plenty of bass one-shots and it's free. I used the mute and the fingered style of playing when making this bass, and this is what it sounds like. Next up, I went ahead and created a chord progression around the bass using the Playing with Tape preset in Noir Contact Bank. Little did I know, this chord progression was going to be abused throughout the sample as I merely became lazy and duplicated it throughout all the instruments. This includes the trumpet from Balkan Ethnic Orchestra, the strings from Strings of Winter, and the electric guitar from the Evolution Hollywood Blues because it wouldn't be a Steve Lacy sample without any kind of guitar. Now that the intro was finished, I could start working on the main part of the song. I call this section the build-up. I took the same chord progression from the piano from the intro, except this time I changed the arrangement of the chords. Processing wise, on the piano I had an RC20, reverb, EQ, good Hertz Wolf compressor, and ozone imager to widen the sound. Towards the end of the build-up, you will hear the bass come in, and that's something I recently learned because realistically speaking, in a band nobody's ever perfectly on tempo, and a lot of the time if you listen closely you will hear that the bass guitarist has a little build-up before drop into its intended section. Now comes the verse. I used Arturia's Worldly VST with the Rhodes preset, added an RC20, reverb, and some EQ. I also duplicated this and put it onto the guitar to add more excitement to the sample. This is what it sounds like. To add more emphasis, I went ahead and added another piano, except this was a top line just so that the song doesn't get boring and sound too repetitive. Here comes the bridge of the song. I took the chords for the bass and added it to an electric guitar from the Evolution Hollywood Blues Bank. To add more power to the sample, I added a realistic snare from the default FL Studio drum kit packs. Throughout the sample you've heard the bass, but this is what the bass actually sounds like by itself. Next up is a percussion. Very simple percussion, and if you want these sounds, all you gotta do is go down to the pack section in the FL Studio, drum kits and percussion section, and get creative. Finally, I increased the pitch of the song by 200 cents and added an ozone imager to widen the sound. And this is what the finished product of the sample sounds like. Thanks for being patient, and Droski out.